Today on Philadelphia Eagles Now, are the Birds going to make major moves in NFL free agency? We're going to take a look at Howie Roseman's 5-step plan to clear up $35.4 million. Stay tuned for that. But first, make sure you subscribe to the channel because speaking of free agency, talking about the NFL draft, we've been talking about all these Eagles coaching hires right here on the show. We discuss it all on Eagles Now every single day year-round. So hit that sub button to join the largest independently run Eagles channel on YouTube. And let's start the show right now. Go Birds. This is a pivotal offseason for the Philadelphia Eagles, and on today's show, a very informative and very insightful look into the Eagles cap situation, but those 5 moves to clear up $35.5 million. I'm Chase Sr. Thank you so much for being here, and as we always like to say, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thanks for tuning into the show. So many content options out there, so anytime you take time out of your day to kick it with us, we certainly appreciate that. It goes a long way. Let's first take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles cap situation. Birds go into the offseason 19th in cap space per Spotrac. Philadelphia specifically has $20.8 million. The 2024 NFL cap is going to come in over $240 million. Business is booming, as the great Antonio Brown once said, and because the NFL has a stranglehold on America, and because the business interests of the league continue to just skyrocket, that's why the salary cap over the last several years has gone up and up and up and up. So while Philadelphia is paying a lot of big-time dollars to a lot of players on this roster, that can kind of be supplemented a little bit with the fact that the salary cap is also increasing. As for the average age of this Eagles roster, coming in at 26 and a half years old, about middle area of the NFL, 18th among 32 teams. Now, when I talk about this being a massively important pivotal offseason for Philadelphia, they have needs that they need to address. I like the hiring of Vic Fangio. I can get on board with the hiring of Kellen Moore. I thought Nick Sirianni should come back. And when you canvass this roster, there are dogs on this Eagles team. But they need to upgrade at linebacker, maybe even bring in 2 players at that position. James Bradbury got cooked overnight from the Super Bowl last year. I think Philadelphia should either draft or sign a better corner opposite of Darius Slay, who the latter I'd like to see come back because I thought big play Slay played pretty well this year. I like Reed Blankenship, has to stay a little bit healthier, and we're not sure about Kevin Byard. We'll get to him in just a little while, but I'd like to see the Eagles get younger or upgrade there. Antoine Winfield, as I talked about in my perfect offseason plan, would be my dream safety target. Wide receiver 3 needs to get better. We saw that in the Buccaneers game when scrubs were getting snaps at wide out for this Eagles offense. Running back, we'll see what happens with DeAndre Swift. Wouldn't mind bringing him back, but also resetting the running back clock by drafting a rookie in the middle rounds. Right guard, which is obviously Jason Kelce dependent. If the Eagles have confidence in Tyler Steen, you put him there. Cam Jurgens moves to center, but again, it depends on what Kelce decides to do. Right tackle for the future because Lane Johnson getting a little bit older, and we saw a little bit of slippage in play, and then some defensive line help. Vic Fangio is going to run this hybrid 3-4. What does that mean for Brandon Graham? What does it mean for Fletcher Cox? You have some young dogs along that defensive line, but Philadelphia could bolster that unit just a little bit as well. And then you look at the Eagles' 2024 draft picks. They're going to be able to restack the cupboard to a certain degree. And Philadelphia's in a really, really good spot. They had a top 10 pick last year after making it to the Super Bowl. This year, they're going to pick 22nd overall, and then they have that Saints pick, which is 50th overall. So 2 picks inside the top 50, you can get some really good players. How about 3 picks inside the top 53? Howie Roseman, he's got some bullets in the chamber here, and he's ready to spray some bullets here and bring in some good players. You get the round 3 compensatory pick, round 5 pick from Tampa Bay, and then you have 3 more compensatory picks, round 5, round 5, round 5. You get a 6th-rounder from Atlanta. That's 9 total picks for Philadelphia. We know that Howie Roseman likes to wheel and deal, so we'll see if those picks become more than 9 or less than 9 if Philadelphia tries to move up. Keep in mind that the Eagles' roster-building philosophy now shifts a little bit with Kellen Moore as well as Vic Fangio. Offensively, A lot of it's going to stay the same outside of the system. Kellen Moore likes to run a lot of pre-snap motion, a lot of vertical routes. He does run the football, contrary to belief, but sometimes he can get a little bit too pass happy. But he does have a different offensive scheme and mind than Nick Sirianni. So the offense is going to change just a bit, and because of that, could change personnel. Really, the major changes we could see is with Vic Fangio. I think he's going to be able to elevate some of the edge rushers on this team. Haason Reddick, Nolan Smith, off-ball linebackers. He does drop off-ball linebackers in coverage a little bit. But with Nolan Smith, Haason Reddick, Vic Fangio, please, can you just have them pin their ears back, get after the quarterback? But again, both sides of the ball going to shift a little bit. Now, coming up next, Howie Roseman's 5-step plan to clear up $35.5 million. We're going to go through it. We're going to detail everything, and I have a lot of thoughts on it. As for what those moves are, stay tuned. But first, Eagles Now is sponsored by Prize Picks. Daily fantasy sports made easy. You can get a $100 deposit match at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS. You pick 2 or more players. You choose more or less on their projected stat lines, and when you use that link in that promo code, you put $100 into your account. You get $100 back. America's largest independently run daily fantasy sports app. And going into Super Bowl 58, here are the selections that I like for Chiefs, Niners. Patrick Mahomes, they're running a special right now. More than a half passing yard. I'm pretty sure he's going to get that. Isaiah Pacheco, more than a half rushing and receiving touchdown because San Francisco is not good against the run. And then Brock Purdy, more than 248.5 passing yards. I think the Cinderella story continues for him. $100 deposit match, prizepicks.com/CLNS. That link is available for you down in the show notes as well as in the description and comment section of this video. As for those 5 moves to clear up money for the EAGLES Eagles, number 1, extending Haason Reddick. Chase, why does this make sense? Let me explain why it makes sense. A Haason Reddick contract extension per Spotrac could save the Philadelphia Eagles about $11.8 million. He's coming off a year that wasn't as good as his 2022 campaign, but I thought the Eagles used him very poorly. He still registered 11 sacks, 67 pressures, 41 hurries, 23 quarterback hits, and 13 tackles for loss. To do this in a down year, that's pretty damn good. And for Reddick, 4 straight years of double-digit sacks. He's still only 29 years old. And as we've seen, edge rushers can age at a pretty good clip. And Haason Reddick, I still think has some really good football left in him, as he's been a little bit of a late bloomer. My take here, I think that Haason Reddick could absolutely thrive under new defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, who's been able to elevate and bring the best out of edge rushers and sack artists his entire career, whether it be with Miami, whether it be with Denver, whether it be with the Chicago Bears. Throughout his career, edge rushers and off-ball linebackers have been able to produce big sack numbers. Reddick can do that, and we know you can never have enough elite edge rushers on a roster, so having Haason Reddick for the foreseeable future and then saving almost $12 million, it seems like a no-brainer. I mentioned a little bit earlier that we were going to talk about Kevin Byard. So move number 2, in addition to extending Haason Reddick, is cutting Kevin Byard. In doing that, the Eagles could save $14 million, and that seems to be worth it because the dead money is something that you can absorb. It's only $346,000. He was the 23rd highest graded safety per Pro Football Focus after a couple of years in which he's been a 2-time All-Pro. He's been a good tackler. He has good instincts at that safety position. He did have a career high in tackles this year, but a lot of that, and he was 4th on the Eagles in tackles, even though the Eagles didn't make a move for him until the trade deadline. That isn't always a good thing, because that means that ball carriers and receivers are getting to that 2nd and 3rd level, and then the safety is the last line of defense. Byard did some solid things for the Eagles. I thought his defensive effort against Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl 57 rematch, very impressive. But the effort, the final 2 games, I didn't love it. I'd be open to reworking his deal. But $14 million for an aging, declining player is way too much, and you could use that money for a player like Antoine Winfield, who's the younger, better player, an upgrade, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Move number 3, cutting Avonte Maddox. Shout out to Dennis Designs. He's going to love this one. Loyal viewer and a real one here on Eagles Now. I like Avonte Maddox as a player. I think he's been a pretty solid slot nickel corner. He's very valued inside this Eagles locker room. What's the issue, though? You're paying him good coin, and he's not playing enough because he's literally always injured. This would have to be a post-June 1 cut. And if the Eagles cut Maddox post-June 1st, allows him ample time to latch on with another team, it also frees up just north of $7 million. You do have to take on $2.5 million of dead cap. Keep in mind here that the thought process from me is that if you cut Avonte Maddox, Isaiah Rodgers, who the Eagles picked up, is going to come off that gambling suspension. And Isaiah Rodgers was one of the highest graded cornerbacks in the NFL in 2022 and in 2021, and he can impact special teams as a returner. Maddox can't do that, and you might be able to make the argument that Rodgers is the better player. So Maddox, a good player, always injured. I'd roll with Rodgers, and this is going to be in the 2024 NFL Draft. We've done some draft coverage so far. We're going to really ramp it up. I'm going to the Super Bowl next week, doing shows from Vegas, so stay tuned for that. I think that the Eagles, in what is a 2024 draft class that is very deep at slot and nickel corner, a lot of hybrid corners in this draft. It's known to be a really good one. You roll with Rodgers, you draft a young slot nickel, you save some money, and you kind of retinker at that position and you say goodbye to Avonte Maddox. Next up, extending Jordan Mailata. What a story this has been. Never played football before. Eagles find him playing rugby in Australia. They make him a late-round pick, and he's ended up being one of the best tackles, not just left tackles, in the National Football League. If the Eagles extend Mailata here, they could save $2.7 million. Prior to 2021, he did sign a 4-year, $64 million contract extension. He's going to be due for a bag. He was the 3rd highest graded offensive tackle in the NFL this year. And for Mailata, the only tackle in the NFL to earn a Pro Football Focus grade in run and pass blocking, 2 different categories, of at least 83. And he's still a young player. He could be a building block for you for a long time. We've seen with this organization how Trey Thomas and John Runyon and Jason Peters and Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson, how all these offensive linemen, they could play for a really long time. Mailata can as well. You extend him. He's a part of this future for a long time. He's a stupid, ridiculous athlete, and you save some money. And then lastly, move number 5, you extend Josh Sweat. Now, this comes under a couple of caveats here for Howie Roseman and company. We know that they're fiscally responsible and fiscally smart. If you extend Josh Sweat, you can free up $2.5 million. This year, solid year, although he did have 11 sacks last year. That was basically almost cut in half in 2023. 6.5 sacks, 45 hurries, 16 quarterback hits, and 68 pressures. The concern here, had awful knee injuries when he was in high school going to Florida State. That's why he slipped in the draft. A great mid-round pick by Philadelphia as a former Seminole. But he had 5.5 sacks through 9 games. No sacks until Week 18. As I've said here on the show, this is a byproduct of the Eagles scheme being dog shit. I'm down with an extension that's affordable. But with a player like Josh Sweat, who I think is good, not special, he's like the Eagles' version of Tobias Harris, good, but not special. I'm not overpaying for a player like Josh Sweat. You have him under an affordable contract like he's been under, I can get jiggy with that. So what say you? What's the Eagles' biggest offseason need? Hope you enjoyed the program here today. Very informative in my eyes. Hope that you felt the same. And don't forget to subscribe to us right here on Eagles Now.